Well, hello there. Welcome back to the podcast, my friends. Today we're going to have another great conversation. How to spend your money guilt free. This is a really important question, and I'm really excited to talk about it because this is a title of a masterclass that I taught last year. I taught this year, and it has created a lot of buzz in the conversations that I've had with women. The idea of spending money guilt free. And this is an idea that I realize, as I've told you before, these are the things that I talk about on this podcast are truly things that I've lived so deeply that I must share, right? But more importantly, we're on a journey to financial confidence here. And so we do need to have conversations that we usually don't have. And so spending money guilt free is one of those conversations. So we're going to have it today. And the way I'm going to approach it is going to be in a way that you've never really explored because we're just not exposed to these kind of conversations. We're not exposed to these kind of possibilities. Now, for me, I always felt guilty whenever I swiped my card. I often wondered if I was doing the right thing. And so to get to a point where I spent money and I didn't hear that voice in my head telling me that what I was doing was wrong. And then a week would go by, a month would go by, months would go by. And years later, I still don't look back and think, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I would never do that again, or anything of that sort. So it is something that I've mastered, and I feel very grateful to have gotten here because the mind chatter has lessened 100%, right? When it comes to that. So now, the reason this matters, why this conversation is so important, is because we are so trained to carry guilt around over so many different things. Think about it. We feel guilty when we're having fun. We feel guilty when we're not having fun. Guilt is one of those emotions we naturally just take with us. Guilt and shame. They're kind of like two pieces of the same coin. And so spending money comes up with a lot of guilt and shame just automatically for a lot of us. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have spent money on that specific purchase. Oh, but I should have spent money on this thing and I didn't. And then every time we tell ourselves I should have done something, it just comes with either guilt or shame. But most of the time is basically us telling us that we did something wrong. And there's a level of shame that first uh, is brought up. And underneath the shame is guilt. They're kind of like two pieces of the same coin. Again, I want you to picture that if like sometimes you'll feel guilt, but sometimes it's interlaced with shame. And I just want us to realize there is a world where we spend money and we have no guilt. Now, I've had women telling me, oh, no, I don't have any guilt when I spend money. And then I say, yeah, not in the moment because you're flooded with dopamine hits. I mean, dopamine. Yeah, you're flooded with dopamine in your system, right? So you're not going to feel guilty in the moment because the dopamine hit is going to flood your system and take over. And you can only feel the excitement of the spending. But what about a day later? What about when everything settles down? What about a week later? Have you ever made a financial decision where you felt regret afterwards, even years later? And then also you didn't know how you were going to come back from it? The antidote to that is to learn how to spend your money guilt-free. Zero regret. None. Now, that may sound too good to be true, but I'm going to show you today that there is a possibility. There's a life where you live and you don't have any regrets over your past financial decisions. None. And let me tell you, it's not about a reframe. So I'm not inviting you to this conversation to teach you how to reframe. I'm inviting you to this conversation to show you there's a different way. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Another reason why this conversation matters is because spending money is what we do. We need to spend money. It's like eating. We have to eat. We have to eat, we have to drink, we have to sleep. But somehow we have attached a whole lot of negative emotions to the thing we need to do as a human in a society full of humans. We need to spend money. We have bills. We have expenses. We have responsibilities. We need to spend money. We're always spending money. And so there is a part of our lives where we are spending money for the life that we have. And then we're also exposed to spending money for the things we want. We don't need them, but we want them. But then the guilt gets kind of meddled and mixed into all of that. And then now every time you swipe your card, there's just always this layer of guilt that comes along with it. Whether it's to pay a mortgage, whether it's to spend on vacation, eating out, a gift to a friend, it's all laced with a little bit of guilt. A lot of times you may not like carry that guilt around as a heavy burden until you make a really big expense. And then all of a sudden it comes flooding. So sometimes you feel the guilt for all the past expenses, not just for the one time. But like guilt is constantly attached to your relationship with money, to how you're making your financial decisions, how you're spending your money. And you may not even have noticed it, but that discomfort you have when spending money, when thinking about money, the simple fact that you can't even have a full, clean conversation about money unless it's just to complain how hard the economy is, but just really talking about how much you make, how much debt you have, any struggles you may have, but in the most constructive way. Any plans you're making for the future. Like if we can have those conversations openly, then there is a level of shame and guilt attached to the way we navigate our finances. And these things feel normal. They feel normal, but they affect how we make financial decisions. So the real problem is not always that guilt that we feel around money. That guilt and emotion, I always say they're messages. That's not the problem. It's a message that needs to be investigated, understood. It's really here to reveal a deeper problem, right? So think about it for a second. When you make an expense, when you spend money on a specific thing, you make a financial decision. And later on, at any given time in the future, when you feel the regret of that decision, what you're basically saying is, I shouldn't have done that. And then the next level of that is, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then the next level of that is, I shouldn't be trusted with money. I don't know how to decide and trust it and follow through. I don't know how to be sure I made the right decision. This is an issue of lack of self-trust. We have to make financial decisions every single day. And if every single time we're faced with a decision and our decision is laced with, I'm not really sure what the outcome of this is going to be, so I'm not sure that this is the right decision. Or you may even be in the moment thinking this is the right decision. And then when the outcome surprises you negatively, you think, I shouldn't have done that. That was not the right decision. When you make a decision and then later on you tell yourself, I'll never do that again. All of these dynamics around financial decisions are laced with guilt. A sense of, I don't know what I'm doing, but not in an empowering way. So I want you to really reflect on that. Are there any areas of your life where you've made financial decisions and when you look back, there's so much shame and guilt attached to it that it's hard for you to even talk about it? And here's another way I want to help you consider financial decisions. They're not just about swiping your card to spend money. A financial decision can be about, do I take this job or do I not take this job? A financial decision is when I'm buying my home and I'm offered a mortgage, different packages. Do I take this package with this mortgage amount, or do I take this package with this mortgage amount? Because it has different features. For instance, I know a friend who bought a home, and if she had added a full basement done, her mortgage would have been a different price than if she didn't, right? So the decision is, do I go along with a full basement completed and say yes to that mortgage? Now, you may think these are logistics, not decisions like, do I have the cash? No, it's so much deeper than that. Because sometimes you may have the cash, but you're still wondering, should I do it? Should I do it? Do I want a full basement? Do I want an incomplete basement? Not knowing what to do in that situation and feeling wobbly, walking yourself into that situation, and then making the decision in the wobbliness. And then a year later or 2 years later, looking back and thinking, I shouldn't have done that. All of that are financial decisions. Going on vacation and realizing, oh, based on what I planned, there's an extra excursions that I want to take on that I'm interested in. Now I don't know for sure if I should spend money on that or if I shouldn't. Let me call my girlfriends to see, oh, what do I do? Because if I just rely on myself to make the decision, I might have regret later. All of these scenarios are here to help you see that the real question on how to spend money guilt-free involves your financial decisions. I'm actually really excited about this topic because this month in Money Academy, we are going over the self-concept. We're having so much fun breaking down who you think you are to yourself, and then the difference between, or the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go, and how you close that gap in terms of your relationship with money, your relationship with yourself, your goals, your life's aspirations, all of the things. And the next month in September, we're going to talk about financial decisions. That course in September is so robust. And I'm so excited to say September has 3 days that we're going to do calls on it, because usually based on the month schedule, we end up with 2 calls. But I'm so excited that September we're going to have 3 calls, because this is a robust conversation, financial decisions. But how to spend your money guilt-free is basically saying, how do you make a financial decision and then you don't have regrets later? So that's what I want to talk to you about. And when we look at that question and we look at what it's sitting on top of financial decisions, really it comes down to how much you trust yourself, how much you rely on your own advice, how much do you have your own back when it comes to your decisions, to your life, to your future, to your past. How much you look at your past and you're just so rigged with regret that you can't even investigate it. You can't even talk about it, right? And that's what I want to bring to your attention. Because when you look at the guilt and shame that are attached with women spending money today, whether it's today or in the past, it affects who you show up to be in the future. It affects how you make decisions for the future. And it's not just affecting your financial decision-making process. It's affecting your decisions about everything in your life. Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And money is one of those things. When there are negative emotions, unprocessed negative emotions around money, it destroys our self-esteem overall. Our entire self-esteem is affected when we don't trust ourselves around money and financial decisions. And so all of a sudden, you don't really know what you should have for dinner. You don't even know if your girlfriend calls you for advice. What do you say? You're not sure if you have good advice. And it starts to just seep into every aspect. Do you build the business this way? Do you build the business that way? Do you even know what you're doing with your business? Do you join this mastermind? Do you sign up with this coach? Do you even trust your coach's process? How do you make decisions in your own business? How do you make decisions at work? How do you ask for the promotion? How do you have the hard conversations? How do you talk to your partner about money, about decisions that involve you? All of these things start to be affected because your relationship with money, the way you're spending money, the way you feel guilty and shame around money is unprocessed and unexamined, uninvestigated. And so you carry that around and it is this lump in your body, and then it transpires everywhere else. The solution to this is not to just start bracing yourself when it comes to decision and hoping for the best. The solution is to building self-trust, having a process that includes tools to build self-trust that leads you to financial confidence. That's the solution. Is to be able to look at any decision you have to make and have a process for it and lean back on it. And no longer worry because you have a process that you lean back on. You have implemented and used tools to come to that process, to create that process, because it's an individualized process. It's not a process one size fits all. Absolutely not. It's a process that you have investigated, you've created, you've tested, you've regret-proofed the process so that when you make decisions, you follow the same protocol, the same process. And all of a sudden, you have something to lean back on. A process where you are the one bringing the certainty into your relationship with money. Because money was always just a tool. But when we lack self-trust, money becomes this thing that's like a massive mountain that we just cannot understand. We can't climb it. So then we just make decisions every day. We make decisions just randomly. Like today, I'm feeling great, so I'm going to go left. Tomorrow, I feel sad, I'm going to go right. We just never know how we're deciding on the expenses. Do we say yes because we know what we're doing, or do we just say yes because in a moment we have really happy emotions? Do we say no because we are okay passing on this opportunity right now, or do we say no because we're afraid? Or do we say yes because of FOMO? Oh, I don't want to miss out, so I'm going to go say yes. But we don't really know how we're going to show up in that relationship once we make the expense. What is guiding our decision-making process? Because that's the thing that creates the guilt later, right? Because when you make a decision and you don't have a process you rely on, then when the outcome surprises you negatively, the first thing we go to is, I shouldn't have done that. Regrets. I was so dumb. Guilt. What's wrong with me? Shame. Just like that, we're back there. I'll never do that again. We learn nothing. And we repeat this cycle. And it feels normal in society to live like this. But it doesn't have to be that way. Because if you have a process that you trust, that's what you're leaning back on. And what's so amazing about having a process, like what you're grounding your decision on, is that whether the outcome is what you expected or not, first of all, you have so much control when you use a process you trust, because you're trusting yourself, that you are actively involved in creating an outcome that you want. So that changes the dynamic of your relationship with whatever you're spending money on. But even more importantly, whether the outcome is what you expected or not, you don't panic. Going to regret is not your knee-jerk reaction, because you have presence of mind to recognize, what do I control here? Because when you have a process and you didn't fall back on fear, FOMO, uncertainty, self-doubt to make a decision, then you're still riding on the powerful emotions that guided you to make that decision on the other side of the outcome. So when the outcome doesn't show up the way you thought, you have so much data to examine. So inside Money Academy, we follow a process called the financial confidence process, and it has 4 layers. And this is a process a woman can go through throughout her life. It's a process to guide a woman on a path to financial confidence. Because one thing that I want to tell you is that to achieve any goal successfully and make it repeatable, you're going to need a process. You're not going to do it accidentally, because here's what happens when you do it accidentally. You don't know how you did it. You have no power over it. It's not a repeatable thing. So you can't even be proud of it. You can be proud of the results, like I achieved this goal, but deep down there's a level of self-doubt, like I don't know how to do it again. I don't know even how to tell people how I did it, even to tell myself. So did I really do it, or was it just an accident? When you cannot repeat something over and over and over, then you don't feel like a boss. You don't feel like completely accomplished. Let me give you an example of this. So I have been training for my marathon. I've ran a couple of half marathons in the past. So I have ran long distances, double-digit distances before. I've never done past 14 miles. But I also have never thought about how I did it, how I ran the 13 miles prior to me training. But because I'm in this season for the last 5 years where I am studying my life, I'm having so much fun studying my life. Like, I am the student of me. It is amazing. I've always done that. I think I've always done that, but I just spent so much time. I spent more time kind of shrinking myself to make people around me feel comfortable that I didn't really spend the amount of time I'm spending now in watching watching my life in slow motion to see how I create who I become. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Like, watch yourself. Like, be the student of you. That's like the best university you could attend. But let me make sure I stay on track here in this story, because I really want you to understand the value of having a process, trusting the process. First of all, the value of creating the process, because that is the solution to spending money guilt-free. And then once you have a process, to trusting it, and then knowing how to repeat it over and over and over. Okay, so when I've lived my life, all these years, accomplishing incredible things. So the first thing was not knowing how I did it, so never taking credit for it, never celebrating it, right? And then for some things, I had a process. Like, I really knew how I was achieving the things that I was achieving. But again, just spending a little bit of time on that and not really processing it and really soaking it in, to feel empowered around that, and to really, really realize, wait, I could take this and transfer it to this area of my life and this area of my life and this. And all of a sudden I have a large life, which is what I'm doing now. But I wasn't doing that before, because I was surrounded by people telling me how too much I was. And I wasn't trying to fit in, but I was trying to help people around me not feel so self-conscious, because I'm such a vivacious person, and it can be easy for people to feel intimidated around me. And so to make them feel at peace around me, I would play small. I would shrink myself a lot. And that was the people-pleasing era of my life. But now that I'm training for this full marathon, I'm looking at how is it that I'm having so much fun with this process. It's ridiculous, y'all. How is it that I can go out and run 11 miles and it's hard? Running is not easy. Let me tell you, There's nothing about running that is easy. And if a runner tells you it's easy, they're lying. It is not easy. Every mile is painful. But I'm having so much fun. It's kind of stupid. It's absolutely stupid. I'm like in the middle of it and having so much fun. And so I started studying. How am I doing this? So then the first time I had to run 7 miles, I've run so many 7 miles in my life. It's no big deal. It was not supposed to be a big deal. But up until this time, 7 miles has always been a big deal. Because every 7 miles that I ran, it felt like the first time because I wasn't paying attention. I've done it before. What did I do? How did I do it? This time I had a process. It was done like that. I mean, it felt like I was running 3 miles. And if you're a runner or if you've ever dabbled into running, 3 miles it can be a big deal for beginners. But honestly, 3 miles is nothing. People go out and run 5Ks and the fastest person does it in 15 minutes. It's kind of stupid. I'm like, I'm not paying to run for 15 minutes. It's dumb. So 3 miles is nothing. I really felt like I ran for 3 miles. I was so amazed. So, of course, I already had set up a process. So I rewinded and went back and realized, oh, that's what. See, all of a sudden, I became bigger than 7 miles. And that's why I was so successful with it. And so then from there, everything else just feels easier and easier and easier and easier because I'm following the same process. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still in the middle of my training. So maybe I'll hit a wall. I don't know. I'm not worried about it though, because I have a process. This may not feel like it's related to financial decisions, but it's the same thing. See, all of a sudden, I'm not scared of the unknown. I'm not scared that if I go out and run and the run is really, really hard, I have to walk. I haven't had to do, well, walking really, it's no big deal because I have to stop and be interrupted by the beautiful sunrise. Like seriously, it's not even letting me get through my full run because it's so gorgeous. But like, if you really think about it, because I have a process, I'm not stressed about anything around the running. So if I have a process when it comes to my financial decisions, before, during, and after, then I don't worry about feeling guilt. I don't worry about making a bad decision. I don't worry about regretting later on. I don't worry if the outcome isn't what I expect because I have a process that I can rely on. So how do you create a process? That's the question, right? How do you come up with a process that you can rely on so that you spend your money guilt-free? So that every time you spend your money, you're proud of it. You're excited about it. You can be passionate about it. Every single time. Every single time. You're never spending money and looking back and feeling guilty. You're never spending money and looking back and feeling regret. Every time. How do you do that? As I said, the first thing we need to do is to build self-trust. One of the reasons you may not even want to sit down and come up with a protocol, a process, is you don't even trust yourself when it comes to money. You don't trust your own ideas of how you should spend your money. So you spend money the way people say you should spend money. And every time you do that, you rob your trust. Every time you do what you're told to do without examining what you want to do, you're stealing away at your self-trust. Self-trust is your ability to know you know what you're doing and to believe that you know what you're doing and then doing it and then having your back. Like you make a decision even when the entire universe looks like that was not a good decision, you have your back through that decision. That's self-trust. That's very scary because all of a sudden you're relying on yourself. For a lot of women who are in relationships, this part is hard because when we enter relationships, sometimes we abdicate our entire agency to the other person. We don't always do that consciously, but it happens a lot. Because it's nice. It's nice to have someone that you can ask advice from. It's nice to have someone that can help you make a decision, that you can have a back and forth over a decision instead of just having that back and forth with yourself. It's nice. But all of a sudden, our brain gets used to that and then it becomes a pattern. So then when it comes to any decision, it's kind of like you have to like get this person's idea. You got to get this person's feedback. And what you're doing every single time you do that, you don't realize is that you're telling yourself that your opinion doesn't matter. So what if you started a practice of every time you're facing a decision, whether it's to eat ice cream or not, what did you ask yourself first? What do you want to do? What if you assessed what you wanted to do first? That would be an incredible way to start tapping in to reestablishing that self-trust. Because once you do that, the next thing is I want you to believe yourself. You know, because what the next step to this is you'll tell yourself what you want and then you'll still dismiss it because it feels like it's not valid, you know? But what you want, it is so valid. It's the most valid thing in your entire life. Even what your children want isn't as valid as what you want. It doesn't mean that you don't put your children or you don't take care of your children sometimes so well that you may forget yourself. You could do that, but just don't learn that as a habit. Sometimes we do put ourselves last because of the people we care about. That's okay. But just be conscious that that's what you're doing. I don't want you to do it on autopilot because everybody else matters more than you do. And every time you're facing a decision and you don't know what to do, and you need to call somebody to get their advice first before you ask yourself, it's because you don't trust yourself. And if you're doing that on autopilot, I want to wake you up to bring yourself back, to be conscious that this is what you're doing. And it doesn't get better until you break the cycle by asking yourself first, what do I want? What do I really want? And then answering that and believing yourself. At first, it's going to feel wobbly. It's to be expected. But take those little steps. So if you go out to dinner with friends, right, and everybody's ordering an appetizer, do you want an appetizer? If the answer is no, then don't order an appetizer. Believe yourself. And watch everyone else eat an appetizer. That's fine. It doesn't have to be awkward. We get into our head that we have to like fit in and play everyone else's game. No, we don't. You can just sit there and be like, nah, today I didn't want an appetizer. If everyone is getting dessert, do you want dessert? If you don't want dessert, don't order the dessert. That's okay. It doesn't have to be awkward. If all your girlfriends are going on to this concert and you're thinking, I don't want to go. Oh, I would like to go, but I don't want to spend that much money. So I'm not going to go because the ticket that everybody wants to buy is this much. You don't have to do it. Could you start honoring what you want by asking yourself and then believing yourself? That's the step one. And I want to leave you with step one because building self-trust is not something that we overcome, that we build, that we create in one podcast episode. It's a journey. And this is the root of the work that we do inside Money Academy. Every conversation we have inside Money Academy, we're building that self-trust brick by brick by brick. So as I mentioned, this month, we're covering self-concept. That's like the seed of it, right? Who do you believe yourself to be? And if there's no self-trust, that's where we begin. But also next month, when we talk about financial decisions, that's a huge part of your self-trust. And then for the remainder of the year, we're going to keep covering topics that always are going to go back there. Because even in your relationship with time, if you don't have self-trust, then whatever you put on your schedule, you already know you're not going to do it. And if you already know you're not going to do it, your relationship with time is going to be chaotic. Because you're going to constantly end your day feeling unaccomplished. And another thing about self-trust that I want to add is every time your circumstances are not aligning to what you want, it always affects your emotions, your mood. Versus when you have self-trust, when you rely on yourself, then you can balance your emotions and completely unconditioned by the circumstances. But that's a skill that we build together. And I want to invite you to start with this step. Start. Here's my favorite part about the work that I do, where I slow down and study the mechanism of everything that I'm mastering. So I told you I am a student of me, right? So in the work that I do, before I bring up a conversation with my clients, is something I work on myself. So I am really good at slowing down and watching how I interact with these new skills that I want to build. And I watch it and I track myself and I have a conversation with myself and I investigate. This is how I come up with all the ways that leads us to financial confidence. This is how I got there, to be so confident in my relationship with money that there is no economy, there's no news. There's no day that I can open my bank account or I can find out something on the market that can make me collapse.